So the results of the State of JavaScript survey came out. We see that Vite, it's super important, and Astro as a JavaScript meta framework. If you are a developer right now and you're asking yourself what to learn, I want to make sure that you really get the full picture. And I believe this is widely incomplete. And if you only know this, you will still have many troubles going and selling yourself in today's market. And I really wanted to use this video to give you exactly the things that if you invest in them, they give you the highest return on learning. Basically, the things that you learn that make you the most in demand. These things are used in production by real companies that pay real money if you learn them. Now, if you add this, then you are already invincible. So the results of the State of JavaScript survey came out, and this is pretty much how the 13,000 developers that took the survey rank the frameworks. And so a lot of people might try to jump in and kind of prioritize their learning going into 2025 to make sure that you're in the edge and you're learning the latest things, and you'll probably follow this roadmap. We see that Vite, it's super important, and Astro as a JavaScript meta framework, and then maybe Svelte. So that would be like the best things to learn. And then we have like TypeScript somewhere in the B, and then C, like Angular, you shouldn't learn Angular or Webpack or Ionic or any of those. I believe this is very misleading. If you are a developer right now and you're asking yourself what to learn, I want to make sure that you really get the full picture. And at the Senior Dev, we work with developers every day that are interviewing, that are closing offers in today's market, and we know exactly what they're being asked on a day-to-day basis. I know, from the live coding interview to the take-home task, exactly what employers are kind of looking for, and it's slightly different. And I really wanted to use this video to give you exactly the things that if you invest in them, they give you the highest return on learning. Basically, the things that you learn that make you the most in demand. So you make sure that, not only you're learning and developing yourself, but also that you're increasing your value and that you become more competitive in the job market. Because at the end of the day, I love learning to get better and to have more mastery. But I also want to make sure that all my learning, it's aligned and that it will actually pay back in terms of salary, benefits, getting a better job. I know some people, they're just onto the, they have this shiny object syndrome and they go into the latest thing. That's not why we're here. We're here to learn things that you actually will use. And so I'm going to go ahead and reorder this image over here, and we're going to start with the first one and place them. And so by the end, you'll have a full picture of where, what's worth learning. But also what I will do is add some things that I believe are missing and that they are crucial. So let's get going. So let's start with the easy ones and take it out of the way. So Cordova is this kind of HTML, JavaScript to kind of framework and tooling together with Ionic to build mobile apps. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I did use it back in the days, I think 2018 or so, or 2019. I used it to create some mobile app, but I put it in not worth it, like definitely not worth it. It's not that good. There's Flutter these days, there's React Mobile, they're a lot easier to learn. And Ionic is pretty much the same. Kind of, build mobile apps with HTML and CSS, not worth it. Selenium, you'll see this in the corporate. It's a testing framework and end-to-end testing. It used to be the only solution. I do believe, it's written in Java. It got some updates, but it's still not state of the art. And it's not going to really help out. So if you want to learn end-to-end testing, there's better things out there. I'll put it in the not worth it. And the same for Expo, which is pretty much a mobile toolkit to help you out kind of deploy it. Not worth it. I want to invest in those. Now comes the big baby, which is Svelte kit. And I know a lot of people are talking very well about Svelte. People love Svelte, but the reality is the adoption is very low. We rarely see this one used in production. There are some startups that are risking for it. And when you go to looking for a job, the biggest companies haven't moved into it. React is still kind of the most supported. Vue is good, Angular is good, but Svelte, it's really not. It really didn't, hit the iron yet. And yes, you can say, well, maybe it grows in 2025, but I tend to be quite skeptical. And there's several reasons for that. And AI has to do with that. And we'll get to that when we talk about React. But for now, I'll say Svelte, it's kind of great. But again, it would be my kind of second priority. I wouldn't like go ahead and learn Svelte today. I'm even torn to put it somewhere between great and decent. So I'll put it here, but it's kind of almost great, right? And the same goes with Astro. It does get some adoption. It does has, the advantage of performance. The whole island architecture was pretty decent and pretty good. But at the end of the day, the use cases are limited and you won't see this. Like go on LinkedIn right now and look for job postings. You're not going to see this. You can learn Astro and go to your next interview and you have nothing to say. They won't even ask about it. And so, it's cool for your side project and so on. But if you're busy and you want to maximize your time, your side projects should pay into your main thing. TypeScript, top number one. If you're going professionally into looking for a JavaScript job, learn TypeScript as soon as possible. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. So you're still learning JavaScript and make sure JavaScript better. JavaScript with static typing. I love it. I think it's one of the most useful things, especially with AI. Defining types helps you eliminate the hallucinations of, AI tools. So if you define your types, usually the AI is pretty good at defining your logic. And this goes back to what Linus Torvalds said back in the days, that it's that, good programmers care about data structures, where bad programmers care about code. In AI, it's really capable of writing code based on the data structures you define. And so learning about data structures and learning about how to, build interfaces and types and generic types in TypeScript, it's a core skill. Definitely a must have. Next up, it's Turbo Repo. This it's kind of a mono repo tool for building kind of have everything in a mono repo. It works very well with micro frontends, but it allows you to manage, several applications into a single repository. I think it's a great addition to your tech stack. There's different ones that different big companies are using. The reason I put it as a must have is because from all those tools, and we go into a second, is the easiest to learn. And so mono repos are something that not all companies are doing, but some companies are doing. So maybe at work you don't have a mono repo and there's no opportunity for you to really practice with it. Well, Turbo Repo would allow you to build a small proof of concept for yourself in very simple steps, very fast, so you can learn about it without spending hours. And that's why I put it as top number one. Some people would argue that it's not as capable as NX or PnPM workspaces, but it's fast to learn. And that I care about that, because if I can learn something fast that I can actually add to my skill set, and that makes me, at least gives me the opportunity to go to someone that's using a different Turbo Repo tool and tell them, well, I don't know the exact tool, but I don't know this one. Module bundler helps putting all your JavaScript in a single file. Kind of decent. I will even put it in a maybe, because it's not like it was marginally used. The same goes for Rollup. Rollup, it's actually, Vite. It's based on Rollup, and Vite is actually pretty good to learn, but this thing, it doesn't really have too much value beyond that. Testing library goes all the way up. Okay, you gotta learn testing library. It's a way to extend your testing knowledge to modern JavaScript frameworks. It can be used with different frameworks. I love that, because you learn something once, you apply to most frameworks, which is just lovely. So that's the kind of things that actually makes you a lot better. Electron, if you're building an Electron app, if you're going for like a Slack or one of those companies like Discord that maybe they have some runtime and they need a packaged app, then yes. But to be honest, I wouldn't invest in that unless like everything you learn about JavaScript can be applied to Electron more or less. So just get good at the senior kind of full stack JavaScript. Puppeteer, it's a great tool. I'll put it in maybe, but it's mostly used internally. So a lot of internal tools allow you to have this Puppeteer as a headless browser. So when you do, for example, you want to test for web performance, or you want to test in your CI/CD pipeline for accessibility or extract critical CSS, Puppeteer comes in handy, but it's not something that you'll directly work with most of the times. It'll be somewhere under the hood, so no need to stress about it. Yarn workspace, again, it's an alternative to NPM, and to be honest, I put it in maybe, because unless your company is using it, then why bother? And here comes the last of the first row, which is TurboPack. It's the alternative to Webpack. Again, a module bundler. I'll put it in maybe, because unless your company is using it, then why bother? They say it's faster than Webpack, but Webpack might get some rewrite in Rust, which will make it faster and allows us to use the same interface. Webpack, it's supported widely. Why learn something that does the same thing as Webpack, only faster? It's been inspired in it. A lot of things are pretty much the same, but if you know Webpack and you know what a module bundler is, like Rollup, Vite, and so on, they all kind of look the same. So again, we want to focus on the essentials, the things that matter the most. You could actually go and move it into decent, but still, like why? Why bother? NX, again, just another mono repo tool. I think it's a good one. It's very good for the use case they actually solve, but you might not need this in most, like when you go out there, because most companies don't have yet a mono repo. They're moving towards it. I would say it's valuable only if it's used, by your employer, like wherever you work now, and you have that opportunity to get your hands on it. If not, just turn to it. React, alternative to React, that it's more lightweight, not worth it. It just doesn't have that option. So why would I learn? Why would I learn to use 15 different tools for the same thing? Your value doesn't grow as a developer if you just know 15 ways to do one single thing. Yes, sure, there's value in it. There's some value in it, but it's very little. And so it's much better for you if you are a front-ender, for example, rather than learning React, to go in and learn HTTP, to go in and learn a bit about APIs and databases. That will really expand, right? It will expand your knowledge without really spreading you out too thin. Whereas React, it's kind of solidifying your component framework knowledge, but it's not really adding anything new to your skill set. It doesn't challenge you. You're learning the same thing. It's like learning, how to write the same essay in a different language. Any marginal language, right? Playwright. Yes. Playwright is being replaced. It's kind of replacing Cypress, and people love it. There's different reasons why it's slightly better than Cypress. I think Cypress is still king, but if I would start looking into end-to-end testing today and I would know nothing, I'll start with Playwright. It's very good to write end-to-end test. I love end-to-end test. They're one of the best thing you can have in an application, especially like we're adding all this AI written code that nobody really has any control over. So adding end-to-end test is probably the safest way to ensure code quality, especially if you're using AI for coding tools. Vue.js, yeah, it's great. It's the most spread framework after React. And so employability will be decently high. I know several people that switch from, people we have in our mentoring program that maybe they were Vue developers, now they're working with React, or they were React developers, now they're working with Vue. It's extremely easy to move your knowledge between the two of them. They follow very similar philosophies. For me, it's like a open source, like a free React, because React is kind of owned by Facebook in a way. Angular, I would say, is decent. Now, people kind of hate Angular, and there's been a bunch of releases, and it kind of, the hope came back up that Angular is going to be this big thing with services and signals and all that. It definitely has some really cool features you don't find in any other framework. It's very corporate, and if you're going for a more traditional companies, you will find Angular. Right? It comes with TypeScript. We know traditional companies for a fact prefer it, corporates prefer it, and so it will add to your employability. It will definitely add more to your employability than knowing Astro. And yes, Astro, it's cooler and it's, the latest stuff. But yeah, Angular will help you out. You can go to an employer and you can get that job because you have Angular. They'd go for someone that knows the tool first. That's unfortunately what they do. It's not maybe the right way to source candidates, but it's how it works. And so I would rather learn Angular. Again, like I kind of put SvelteKit on top of Angular and Astro, so I'm going to rectify that, right? I put Angular here because it actually pays into my employability. Yeah, I'm thinking about downgrading these two. I will get back to them later. S-Build, it's a decent, like people love it and it's much faster than Webpack, but it's not as supported. It does a lot under the hood. And I'll talk, it sounds easier because I can do, this one line config. I do find Webpack to be clear and easier to understand for somebody that's a beginner, just because it kind of clarifies a bit, all the processes that your code goes through before it gets code splitted. And I just find it better documented. So most companies would use Webpack in production, and that's why I would invest in Webpack. And this is one of the things where I disagree most with the survey, where they placed Webpack as in the very bottom low. I will place it at the very top. So Angular and Webpack are at the very bottom. I disagree. I think your employability, if you learn Webpack and Angular, will be very high. They're not selling their frameworks as well as everybody else, but these things are used in production by real companies that pay real money if you learn them. And I would rather learn those than, so whatever passion project the open source community comes up with. Gatsby, wow, everybody thought this is going to be the next big thing. I remember 2020, we went to Gatsby conferences and it was the coolest thing ever, and it never kind of picked up. I mean, people use it for the blogs. Some people use it, like it has, if you combine it with a CMS, kind of allows you to do like this, especially static rendering. It's extremely good at that, but it kind of like stay there. It's kind of decent. So if your company is using it, learn it. If not, not really worth it. If you have a developer blog, you might think about migrating to it. It's a framework for Vue, so kind of allows you to build better applications with Vue. It's the Next.js of what Next.js is React. It's for Vue.js, so it's decent. But first, learn Vue without Next. Capacitor, Storybook. Storybook, it's actually a great thing to learn. A lot of big companies are using it. You'll find it in job descriptions. People ask you, what do you know about the design system? Especially bigger companies, they use design systems to build reusable components. And Storybook, it's a very easy way to do that. So Storybook, it's a good one. Mock Server, I would say decent, right? It's very useful to kind of mock your APIs. And sometimes you don't even need that kind of tool. So spending your time on a marginal use case, it won't pay back. Like NPM, but what's there to learn about NPM? I mean, yes, Yarn is better, but most projects will be set up with NPM, and most developers know NPM, and most documentation is still related to NPM. So I would say it's kind of here in terms of great. Learn how to package a simple, how do you distribute like a simple package if you were to build it? It's a very good exercise for the JavaScript developer, and learn NPM beyond NPM install. It's also pretty decent tool. It's much faster than NPM because of how it's designed, and it's kind of an alternative for that turbo repo. But again, it's more complex than turbo repo, and I would go for turbo repo as an easy way to move your knowledge into monorepos. Vitest, the same level of Vue, kind of helps you write unit tests. It came from Vite. It's strong in the Vue ecosystem. A lot of people use it for React too. I think it's decent, even if just it's still the main player there, and that's why it just goes at the very top, the most used probably testing library. Very simple to use, and it's just gonna be easy once you know just to learn Vitest and to learn Mocha. So why not? If they're all the same, then why not learn the most popular one? Because that's the one that you'll get questions in a real life interview. That's the mentality here. Lena goes into a no. I mean, it's kind of a monorepo thingy. Few people really use it. I kind of agree here with the JS ranking. Not really worth it. Vite goes to my second row. A lot of people have been saying, why are you still using Webpack when Vite is like so much better and so much faster and it's like a one-line config? Well, because there's a lot of things that Webpack could do in the beginning that you cannot really do with Vite. It used to be the case with Module Federation. Now they migrated to Vite. I don't really care which one you use, but to be honest, Webpack goes a lot more in depth. A lot of bigger corporates, bigger companies still use more Webpack than Vite. They all do the same, and it's extremely easy once you know Webpack to learn Vite. It's like if 100 is the effort to learn Webpack, 5 is the effort to go from Webpack to Vite. It's just plain simple. So learn the most used one, learn the one that's going to give you the mental models, and then switch your knowledge to Vite. So SvelteKit, I mean, I kind of placed that already. And what else do we have? We have Remix. They sold Remix so much, and it had so many really cool features, and still adoption didn't happen. Very few companies use Remix in production. I did like the philosophy behind it. I have to be honest. There was nothing too wrong with it, but Next kind of was just better at the market share, and that's why Next goes all the way to the top. If you're learning React today, you also want to learn Next.js and do server-side rendering with Next. It's widely supported. Vercel, it's building a lot of the infrastructure of the modern web, and of course, it still has a lot to go, but I do believe they are a much better player, and I would rather invest in Next.js than in anything else. At the moment, it will be the one that pays most back. Cypress, I already put Playwright at the top, so Cypress goes lower just because it used to be the best tool to write into a test, but it kind of stayed there, whereas Playwright did moved up, and developers prefer Playwright for many different reasons. It's just more flexible. It's definitely better nowadays. If I start a project, I would use a Playwright, not Cypress. React goes at the top. I know people is going to be hating on React. They've been hating on it for years. React was hated since the first time it came out, and I still believe it's one of the best UI framework. Some people will say, oh, you don't even need React. You could do everything with vanilla.js. I do not believe that. I believe they solved very big problems that web dev had, and I still believe it's one of the greatest front-end framework. It's definitely a top player when it comes for you looking at the market and getting to know a job, and it's extremely easy if you know React to learn things like Vue and even Angular. I mean, Angular, okay, it has a bit more than React in it, but once you get your head around components and state in React, that's extremely easy to extrapolate it. It still has around 70% of the market, 80%. So you need React. If you have React in your CV and you're reasonably full stack and you're decent at it, you're pretty good, like there's Memo, hooks, state management, the web very well, you won't have a problem even in today's crazy market. So learn React, get as good as you can to it. I'll put React Native as decent because do you really need to build a native application? Yes, we have mentees that worked with React Native. I had to work with it back at Klarna. We're building the banking app and we had React Native, and it was, there were certain disadvantages and advantages to it, but it was so easy for all the JavaScript developers. It was so easy to hire React Native people. Flutter, it's slightly better these days. It's more performance. State management is better in Flutter. I did not add Flutter here. React Native, it's a very easy step from a React dev to go and work on mobile. So definitely kind of decent, kind of worth it. SVC, kind of Rust tooling, a Rust transpiler if you want. I'll put it here. It's kind of under the hood of many things that Vite does, but it's nothing that you necessarily have to dive in. And then, React, it's again here. So I'll put React twice. So you can hate on me in the comments, but I think React is the best framework right now to learn. Still the best one. Most code bases are written in React. It's extremely easy to work with AI on it. You're going to get the best suggestions just because the data set is bigger. And so it still maintains the advantages of being the one and only framework, and everything that came after kind of failed to help. Now, there's a lot of things I don't like about React. Some of the direction is going right now. It gets the job done, and if you go on LinkedIn and you look for jobs, you'll find that React is one of the best things to add to your skill set in terms of possibilities and options you get. Now, there are a lot of things that I also added that are not here, and I'm going to go very quickly over them because I do believe this is widely incomplete, and if you only know this, you will still have many troubles going and selling yourself in today's market. And the number one thing is Babel, which is the transpiler. It transforms JavaScript, modern JavaScript, to anything else you need. I think it's core to your understanding of Webpack and transpiling, and you need to know Babel and how we transpile JavaScript and polyfill. So I'll add it into the GOAT list. There's React Query. which I'm not a fan of libraries as per se, but it does make something super easy, especially caching and data fetching. It's kind of a combination of state and fetching data. And it's amazing because you don't need to put your state anymore in like a global store. When you're just fetching data, you just solve it at component level. And on top of that, so many features that would be so hard to build if you do it yourself. So I do believe React Query went in the right direction, and it's just a great thing to have. GraphQL. Now, this every I added here looks like front end, but if you don't know how to fetch data or how data looks at data layer level, you won't know much. I know you're a front end dev. Why would I care about APIs? Well, because employers want a senior front end dev that can actually extend API sometimes, because you will be working on the back end for front end, or they need to have an opinion on APIs. And so, yes, if you can get your hands on GraphQL, if you're just consuming data, understand, how resolvers, how schema work, get your head around how to organize data in an efficient way in a big front-end application, you will be in a very good spot. We have Docker. Dockerize a React application, run it with Docker locally, understand how it works. It's the industry standard for deployment, but you do need Docker nowadays. If you don't have it, it just looks like you're just, mid-level front-end. Sentry, right? Monitoring. We need to monitor. I know Sentry is kind of a private. There's better alternatives nowadays to it, but I added it here because it's one of the easiest to set up. It gives you web performance and error monitoring. Monitoring is very important. It's not only about building things. We're here to deliver industry level software. It has to be well operated. You have to be able to deploy it, and you have to be able to monitor it. That's the job of a developer. It's not just, collecting logos of libraries in your package.json. So Sentry, it's a must-have. Tailwind CSS. I'm not a fan of CSS frameworks. Learn CSS yourself, and ideally a little bit about how to make things look good. Color theory, composition, they all help to have an eye for things. But Tailwind, it's kind of a shortcut, and it's widely adopted now. So people do mention that, and it's kind of a nice to have in a job. GitLab. You want to learn how to build a pipeline, deploy your Next.js app. I know Next.js has Vercel, and it's all happened magically under the hood. Most companies won't use that. They'll use GitLab, and you're going to need to learn how to operate that, even if you're just working mostly on the front end. Amplify, it's AWS answer to Vercel and Netlify. It's a one-click deployment on AWS. It's the easiest way to start on AWS. There are errors and sometimes it just doesn't work, but they made it quite easy to start with it. And I would go ahead and deploy a small project on AWS Amplify, get an AWS account, and get yourself into the cloud, play with the cloud, figure out that it's not so intimidating as it seems. That would really boost your value. And so if you look at the developer here, like let's imagine you only know this stuff, right? You are very valuable in the front end, but you will not be hardly ever be considered for senior roles. Now, if you add this, that's what makes like the top row now, it's perfect for a senior, right? And if you add the second row, then you're already invincible, and everything else kind of gives you diminishing results. So the 80-20 rule, don't invest in things that don't pay back. This is what I would focus on in 2025. I know there's a myriad of frameworks and libraries out there, but these are the ones that I most use. And as you see, a lot of stuff kind of stays the same and consolidated, but there's some new upcoming tools that actually made it after a couple of years. So going back to our starter point, you see it looks very, very different from how it used to be. And I promise you, if I would start looking for something in 2025, this is where I would start. If you're wondering where you are staying in terms of technical skills, take our free assessment. A lot of the questions you'll see there are fundamental questions, particularly around, mental models, but some of them are, regarding things you usually use in Webpack or in Playwright or in React. So it will give you an insight of where your skills are right now and what to invest, what's the biggest gap, the biggest opportunity for you to get some return on learning as with a return on investment. I'll see you in the next one.